David Helfman.
Good morning, delegates. I would like to begin this morning by congratulating President Clara Floyd. Yesterday you heard from NEA President Dennis Van Rokel when he talked about President Floyd's long record of association advocacy. This work spans more than 4 decades, from Illinois to Maryland. During her time as an MSEA officer, President Floyd has been passionate about focusing her energy on students. When President Floyd addressed us yesterday, I heard her say something that I've heard at least a dozen times before, maybe 24 times, a comment she attributes to her husband, Dr. Jerry Floyd. Where are you, Dr. Jerry? Waving on the side. Welcome. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Yes. If there were no children, there would be no need for your members. President Floyd is all about students, stressing the importance of high expectations for student achievement of all students and for effective and high-quality teaching in every classroom. All students and every classroom. That places an emphasis on not stopping at the privileged living in suburban Washington, Anne Arundel, Baltimore, or Howard counties. Let's be honest. Here in Maryland, among the top-ranked school system in the entire nation, there are too many students who still do not have their needs met. Too many classrooms lacking an effective, high-quality teacher, and chances are they are found disproportionately in ethnic minority communities. This is a wrong that we must continue to confront. In 2003, 53% of the children in Maryland in our public schools were white. By this last year, the number stood at 45%. African American students grew a bit, from 37 to 38%. Most of the growth in our state was from other ethnic minority groups. Asian Pacific Islander and Hispanic students grew from 10% to 16%. So the demographics of our student population is changing. We have transitioned into a majority-minority population. Now, a necessary but not sufficient condition for addressing needs of all students is adequacy and equity in school funding. President Floyd has championed school funding that provides both adequacy and equity. Among her accomplishments, she is particularly proud of her work forming, supporting, and ultimately holding together the coalition effort which culminated in the passage of Thornton funding for schools. Delegates, over the past decade, we've engaged in many other battles. We've secured bargaining rights for the Eastern Shore. We've improved pensions. We've successfully lobbied for an independent labor board. We've repeatedly beat back attempts to divert funds through the BOST tuition tax credit voucher-type scheme. Our national economy has been rocked by Wall Street investors and bankers who suck the life out of the housing industry. Members of that wealthy elite have funded political campaigns to strip power from labor unions, starting with the private sector unions and then moving on to us in the public sector. Strong labor states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio have seen public sector bargaining laws decimated. In 2 weeks, MSEA will be sending staff to Ohio, where they will be on the ground working on a Get Out the Vote campaign to defeat Issue 2, a law eliminating collective bargaining for public sector workers. Could we see such battles here in Maryland? If we're complacent in our election efforts, you can count on it. Nobody imagined that Republicans would sweep into power in both legislative chambers and the governor's seat in Wisconsin. Even if we succeed here in Maryland, at the national level, leading presidential candidates have already committed to supporting legislation outlawing agency fee and eliminating the ability of public sector unions, no matter where they are, nationwide, to collect dues through payroll deduction. Now imagine how that would impact membership at the state level, at your local level. If tomorrow you no longer had the ability to utilize payroll deduction for collecting dues. We cannot afford political complacency. We cannot afford to divert attention away from our political fundraising and campaign activities. Now, I see some bells in the audience. If yours is wrapped up, unwrap it. And I want to hear, if you were at the Keep the Promise rally, I want to hear you ring your bell. How many of you were impressed by the 15,000 person turnout, 3 times the planner's original estimate? Ring that bell. How many of you were pleased that the General Assembly restored more than $70 million to the governor's funding proposal for our schools? How many of you were pleased that the General Assembly reduced our pension COLA benefits, slashed benefits for new employees, increased our contribution by 2% of pay, and used a shell game to divert those funds away from our pension fund into the state's general fund? What's wrong? You're not happy about that? You don't like the teacher tax? Now, the General Assembly overreached, and our governor failed to stand up for us. We were at the table with a $4 billion compromise, one that we said we would support, but they got greedy and walked away from us. They picked our pockets. It was a direct assault on us and an indirect assault on our kids, because a strong pension benefit is crucial to our ability to recruit and retain the high-quality educators that kids depend on. Nevertheless, we lost that battle. But now the battle has shifted. Now the assault is focused squarely on our kids. And remember what Dr. Jerry said? If there were no children, there is no need for your members. In Maryland, we've come full circle since the passage of the great Thornton School funding law. At the state level, inflationary formula adjustments contained in the Thornton legislation have been dismantled. Counties have discovered that they can cut per pupil funding without seeking a local maintenance of effort waiver. There's no penalty when the state isn't providing an increase. So if the penalty for not maintaining effort is you lose your increase from the state, and the state's not providing anyone with increases, there's really no penalty. This year, 7 counties cut per pupil spending, and more are likely to cut spending next year. In Wicomico County, the shortfall is $1,000 a student. That adds up to about $30,000 per classroom. That's a lot of money. Where's Ken Haynes? Where are you, Ken? Ken, how many teaching positions have been eliminated in Prince George's County?
Somewhere near the neighborhood of 800.
Near 800 this year. Where's Paul Lemley? Oh, same Mike. Paul, how about Howard County?
Well, we've added about 40.
You've added about 40. Is anyone surprised that in tough economic times, the harshest impact of cuts falls on our lowest wealth communities, communities with disproportionate minority enrollments? In a funding system designed to provide equity, when the flow of resources is curtailed, those with the greatest need are hurt the most. It is an injustice that we addressed with Thornton, and one which we must address once again. Repairing our broken maintenance of local effort protection is our highest priority. When it was about us, our pensions and pocketbooks, the friends we elected in Maryland got greedy and they walked away from us. When it's about our kids, about providing a safe learning environment, reasonable class sizes, rich curriculum and materials, adequate supports, we fight like a mother bear protecting its cubs. Thank you. And in contrast to our pension campaign, we have coalition partners for this battle from outside the labor community, lining up to join the fight. At the top of the list are parent, minority, and civil rights groups. Our elected officials failed to stand up for us, but they must stand up for our children. When it's about our kids, the friends we elected in Maryland have an opportunity to redeem themselves, to show that they deserve a chance to be considered for our continued support. They begin by making sure that the combination of state and local funding provided to school systems and reaching the classroom level is sustained. While it is so tempting to employ the nuclear option, permanently cutting off support for anyone who voted for the budget containing these pension cuts, we must avoid sending a message to legislators that no matter what they do this year, they have no chance to keep our support. When it comes to legislation, there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. Nothing is more important, as I said, than fixing the local maintenance of effort law and ensuring that school systems have the resources to provide quality education for all students. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention membership and the importance of membership. You heard Ken Haynes talking about the loss of 800 positions. With those kinds of staff cutbacks, we have seen that our membership market share, the portion of eligible members who are members of MSEA, has climbed, yet our overall membership numbers has declined. It's dropped. A declining membership weakens an association at the very moment it needs to be the strongest. It's time to redouble our efforts to recruit the non-members in our buildings. The mother bear protecting her cubs must stay strong. At the beginning of my comments, I shared some data about the changing demographics of our student population, its increasing diversity. The same cannot be said for the teaching population in our public schools. Over the last decade, it has remained at 25% ethnic minority, 75% white. As a result, we over time are looking less and less like our students. While we don't control hiring in school systems, we do control our association. Your leadership team takes our commitment to encourage minority involvement in leadership very seriously. Every 2 years, we review our MSEA Member Involvement Affirmative Action Plan. This year's report, written by your Vice President Betty Weller, was included in yesterday morning's packet. It covers membership diversity and participation in MSEA and NEA representative assemblies, conferences, and committees. Our record is impressive. I really encourage you to take time and review it. As Executive Director, I have a personal responsibility for recruiting staff. Nearly 36 of MSEA's 85 staff members have been hired since I came to MSEA in 2005. We have strengthened our hiring process and our hiring standards. At the same time, ethnic minority hiring has exceeded 40%. I'm particularly proud that this is at all levels of the association: associate staff, professional staff, managerial, and attorneys. While diversity is broader than it ever has been, our outreach to the Hispanic community has not yet borne fruit. We will continue our efforts in that area. How many of you were at the Spring RA, the last Spring RA in Towson? Ring your bell. If you think back to that Spring RA, there were some questions raised by delegates about our staff contracts. If you were there, you'll recall my talking about our staff being private sector employees, not public sector, and that our collective bargaining is conducted not under the auspices of state law, but under the National Labor Relations Act. I was asked by a delegate whether staff was going to continue to receive fully paid health insurance benefits while members did not. This month, your board of directors ratified new contracts for our staff unions. Both of these contracts contain some significant concessions. The first, negotiated with the professional staff, was unusual in that it froze the pay scale for the next 2 years, reduced the 401k match, and initiated employee contributions towards health insurance. These changes, which were also extended to all of the managers, myself included, will generate savings over the next year of nearly $500,000. Significantly, our professional staff agreed to this contract a year before its existing contract expired. The associate staff contract was structured in a similar fashion. While the group, about a fourth of the size of the professional staff, did receive small increases in the next 2 years, the second and third years of a 3-year contract, it will also contribute to health insurance at the same level as the professionals. And as our ESP members in this crowd understand, that cost is harder to absorb at the lower earnings level. So the 1.5% increases in the second and third years will help soften the impact a bit of assuming those health insurance costs. As a result of these concessions, we have a better chance to meet the funding needs of our own pension plan. We enter the 2012-2014 budget planning process with a much firmer indication of what our personnel costs will be. And even though our own membership has decreased, we should be able to direct a greater share of our resources to meet our most critical challenges. I am deeply appreciative of the staff's bold decision to accept meaningful concessions. While staff unions in some other states have hit the picket lines, ours here in Maryland took a different approach. Their approach conveys sensitivity towards the plight of our members who have been struck with frozen salaries, benefit cost increases, and/or furloughs. Most of all, it shows a personal willingness to sacrifice in order to protect and advance a strong labor movement. Delegates, I hope you appreciate how fortunate you are. I certainly do. In Maryland, our public school system has largely been fortunate too. It's benefited from the pioneering Thornton Plan, which President Floyd helped champion. It's benefited from the most outstanding educators in America, many of them right here in this room. Hey, 2 of the last 5 years we've had National Teacher of the Year. But now it's up to us, along with our community partners and parents, to help elected officials understand that they must protect the investments we've made in our kids and their future. Members of the RA subcommittee are handing out postcards, which we will deliver to Governor O'Malley. Please take a moment to fill out the cards telling the governor the impact that school funding cuts have on our kids. Talk about your own school site. Tell him that we must fix this broken maintenance of effort law. Tell him that our kids in classrooms must be highest priority, not a target for cuts. Tell him that Maryland needs growth, not more cuts. You can see on the screen there are some prompts. I hope you'll use some of your own words. Delegates, thank you. Thank you for the incredible work that you do every day with our kids and for your tireless activism on their behalf. I know that this year, once again, we will do an outstanding job educating, organizing, and activating our colleagues and communities, and that together we will protect our kids and all that we've worked for. Thank you so much.